Hello everyone, my name is Carlos Avila, and today on this final investigation, I will be talking about what we have learned about geology throughout the semester, and as well as the 12 interesting facts I have learned about the topics we went over in class, as well as why I think they are important, and finally to wrap it all up, why is it important to understand geology? One interesting fact about plate tectonics is the Himalayas are still rising because the Indian plate is colliding with the Eurasian plate at a rate of about a couple centimeters per year. And I think this is important to understand because it's important to understand the effects the three boundaries will have on our planet. One interesting thing about rocks and minerals is diamonds, one of the hardest minerals on Earth, formed deep in the mantle, around 90 to 120 miles beneath the Earth's surface, at pressures 50,000 times greater than the atmospheric pressure. And I think this is important to understand because it is important to help us understand which minerals are helpful slash useful to us. One interesting thing about igneous rock is the giant causeway in Northern Ireland is made of interlocking hexagonal basalt columns formed from cooling lava from an ancient volcanic eruption. And I think this is important because it is an important step on the rock cycle since it can help make other types of rocks. One interesting thing about sedimentary rock is the White Cliffs of Dover in England are made of chalk, a type of sedimentary rock formed from microscopic marine organism remains. And I think this is important because the different types of objects that can be made from sedimentary rocks. One interesting thing about metamorphic rocks is marble, a metamorphic rock, forms from limestone and has been used for sculptures and buildings since ancient times, like the famous building, the Taj Mahal, a marble tomb dating back to 1632. And I think this is important to understand because it is important to know what the uses this rock has for our society. One interesting thing about geologic time is humans have only existed for about 0.004% of Earth's 4.6 billion year history, a blink in the geologic timescale. And I think this is important to understand because understanding our history of our planet and what impacts our planet has gone through. One interesting fact about geologic structures is the San Andreas Fault in California marks a boundary between the Pacific and Northern American tectonic plates and is visible from space. And I think this is important to understand because it helps us determine the kinds of stresses that have existed within the Earth's past. One interesting thing about mass wasting is the Heart Mountain landslide was the biggest landslide in recorded history, spanning 45 kilometers. The event was caused by tectonic activity and the instability of rock layers. And I think this is important to understand because so we can think of ways to combat its negative effects or think of alternative solutions to this problem. One interesting thing about rivers and flooding is the Amazon River discharges more water into the ocean than the next seven largest rivers combined and accounts for about 20% of all river water that enters the sea. And I think this is important to understand because how we can recover from floodings that have occurred, or we can come up with solutions to help reduce the damage. One interesting thing about glaciers is Antarctica's ice sheet holds about 90% of the world's fresh water, enough to raise sea level by about 58 meters if it melted completely. And I think this is important to understand because they help combat global warming, so we should come up with solutions to help preserve glaciers. One interesting thing about coastal environments is the Great Barrier Reef, the largest coral reef system on Earth, stretches over 2,300 kilometers. And I think this is important to understand because to help mitigate the damages or effects some cities will go through if not stopped. One interesting thing about deserts is the Sahara Desert is so large that its sandstorms can transport minerals across the Atlantic Ocean to fertilize the Amazon rainforest. I think this is important to understand because even though it is mainly sand, the desert environments are still full of plants and animals that rely on that ecosystem. So why is it important to understand geology? Well, geology is the fundamental to understanding Earth's processes, resources, and hazards. It informs us about the planet's history, helps predict natural disasters, and supports sustainable resource management. In essence, geology connects us to Earth's past, safeguards our present, and prepares us for the future. Here are my citations for the first couple of slides. Here are my citations for the last couple of slides, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me talk about some interesting facts about the topics we have learned in class, why they're important, and why is it important to understand geology.